Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Hard Truth Distilling Company in Brown County, Indiana.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Time! 3 on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game! Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni! Float game for the win! Ayler's gone! Goodbye, touchdown, Indy! Woo! IU! America! They got a football team now!
Pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Now, from the Hard Truth Studios, here's Jim Coyle.
Hey, hello everybody. Welcome in. It is Monday and glad to have you along, joined by our good friend Greg Rakestraw from the ISB Sports Network. How are you, sir? How was your weekend? Oh, I've got you muted. My fault. Let me unmute you there. There we go.
Good morning, buddy. How are you?
I'm great. It was a very nice, refreshing weekend with this weather that stayed in the 70s, the humidity. It was amazing. It was crazy to go from living in a heat dome for a month and then to step outside into this garden of wonderfulness. It was incredible.
It was a nice day to be at Colts practice yesterday morning. I'll agree with you on that front.
I'm sure they enjoyed it immensely as well because, I think back when just in high school, it was miserable. Those August days were just horrible. But you get a weekend full of that. They're like, hey, give me some more of this weather.
Yeah, no kidding. No, they got lucky on that. They got to practice in that Thursday night, Saturday morning, and then yesterday morning. But now for the Colts, there is one more practice left before they play a preseason game on Thursday. This always kind of flies to get to this point. And frankly, from a training camp perspective, they've already had 8 open practices. I guess they've only had 9. There's only 4 more left. So you want to go see the team in Westfield, you've got Saturday, Sunday, Monday of this coming weekend and week. And then the 14th, the joint practice against the Packers, which I can tell you, folks, that one is already sold out, but there are only 4 more opportunities to see the Colts in Westfield before everything else goes behind closed doors for the rest of the season. Yeah,
and like I said, I'm sure they enjoyed the weekend, but things continue to roll on. And an unfortunate injury that I read about and we spoke about just before, it kind of reminds me of the Bo Jackson situation, but that was a little bit different, a different injury, but a similar way of how it happened. What they call the hip, what's the official term for
the hip drop tackles? What they're calling
hip drop tackle.
Yep.
Yeah. But,
so Savon Ahmed is the player that got hurt, and Savon is a guy that spent 4 years with the Dolphins, was on a practice squad last year. Frankly, I don't think his chances of making the roster were that high. In fact, I think I got a pretty good handle on what the skill position guys are that I think that'll be on the official roster a month from now for this football team. But kind of at the end of what they call a live period where tackling is allowed and you can bring a ball carrier to the ground, he's kind of breaking through and making a run to the end zone. Defensive back named Trey Washington, who's an undrafted free agent from Ole Miss, trying to make a tackle, just kind of got wrapped up with him in that style and fashion. And unfortunately, Savon suffered a pretty gruesome lower leg injury, his right leg. There are times in sports when you can see a foot bending a wrong way or a leg suddenly having a hinge that it's not supposed to. And that was one of those moments, and it happened about 15 feet in front of me because I happened to be kind of towards that corner of the end zone. And yuck. Is the way I can describe it.
Yeah.
It is in my years of covering the Colts, Jim, it's probably the most significant injury I've seen occur in a training camp practice. And it was 10 minutes of silence as trainers rush over to get to him, as they get the cart out, as they get him to an ambulance. You could see the ambulance leave in terms of getting him to the hospital because it was that significant of an injury. And unfortunately kind of cast a pall on what was a pretty fun day in Westfield yesterday.
Yeah, and it's you don't know how long is it officially someone that's out for the season, or that injury, or is that because with the NFL season being kind of long, sometimes there's a chance for those guys to come back because it happens early enough.
Well, what I would say is this again. I don't think Savon was going to make the team. I think he was more of a candidate for the practice squad. I think there's one of two ways you can go about this. When you have a player that gets hurt, but you don't think is going to make the active roster, you will see a designation called waived injured. In other words, you reach an injury settlement with this player, and that person is now free to hit the open market, but teams know, hey, they got to recover from an injury. The other thing you can simply do is put this player on the IR. And I would imagine a player like Savon, who's getting ready to be in his 6th year in the National Football League, I'm sure he signed to a contract that is a 1-year deal that's a veteran minimum deal. My best guess will be, knowing it's a significant injury and knowing there's going to be a good deal of rehab involved, the Colts will simply put him on the IR. That way he is paid a salary for the entire season. He does not count against a roster spot. But I think just as importantly in this case, he is allowed to then rehab and recoup with the team and have access to the team's medical care for the entirety of his rehabilitation. This could, at this stage and kind of where he is from a career standpoint, that could be the last football play that he makes. That could be it for him. And so the team will announce that in the next few days. And again, I don't think he's making the team. I don't think the young man that tackled him is making the team because, again, these are the 3rd and 4th string guys that were kind of getting reps at the end of a session. But, again, it's just a reminder that, this could happen on any play at this level of the National Football League. The speed, the power, and the impact is that sudden and that severe. And for anybody that is on the sidelines or has kind of front row seats in an NFL game, it is like watching a car crash, multiples of them every play. And that was the reminder of that yesterday morning.
Yeah, that's what's described as the offensive and defensive linemen with the their heads.
Those tend to be at least lower speed, where you're not ramping up to full speed,
right.
As is the case. You're right. Those guys doing it on every play, but they've only got a fraction of a second to kind of get all that mass in motion. You do it in a situation like this where Ahmed had been going for 30 yards, 25 yards across the field for the safety to get there. And frankly, Jim, that's the reason why we have new kickoff rules, is because that is where most of the catastrophic injuries were taking place, were on kickoffs. And so now that, again, we have reduced the speed of most of the players on the field, that's why concussions were at a 10-year low in the National Football League last year.
Yeah, and I talked off camera with you about Kurt Signetti does very, very little live tackling.
Right. No.
And I think that it proved to be very valuable for Indiana. I don't want to jinx them for this year, but they got through the season with relatively health-free injury, to Curtis Rourke, but that happened in game. But they were relatively healthy getting through the season, and that's immensely important for a program, especially like Indiana, who's not in that upper tier of teams depth-wise.
Yeah, the amount of hitting that you see these days in a National Football League practice is greatly reduced. And again, that was one of the rare live tackling portions, of a practice.
What is up next for you?
So I'll hop on a flight to Baltimore on Wednesday. I know you're Puerto Rico bound later this week. I'm going to the DMV.
Ravens, baby. The Ravens. What a way to start the season.
Well, and the Ravens, I'm trying to think how to phrase this in a PG fashion. They're about as red rear end, how about that, as any team in terms of playing their guys in the preseason. John Harbaugh tends to take it pretty seriously. And so it'll be a good test for the Colts. Shane was supposed to notify his quarterbacks last night as to which guy was going to get the nod in terms of starting this game. So we will see an extended dose of either Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones. Whomever we don't see for that length of time in game one, we will see in game number 2. I think we will see both quarterbacks, and then you'll get to Riley Leonard and or Jason Bean. My guess would be kind of the way that Shane has phrased that. that maybe Leonard and Bean will get the majority of the work against the Bengals in Game 3 on August the 23rd. But that is the one thing. If you got a quarterback battle going on, maybe the preseason game's a little more realistic, and that will be the case coming up on Thursday.
What has been your perception so far at the quarterback position? I know it's been a battle between Daniels and Richardson, but what has been the perception that you've seen?
So I went into thinking Daniel Jones had the lead just because he had looked good in the brief workouts we had seen, and knowing that Anthony Richardson is dealing with some shoulder soreness at the end of minicamp in early June. I have kind of reversed my position on that. Richardson has looked better, not perfect. There's still sessions and times when throws that you go, no, you can't make that one. No, you have to make that one. And it's not that Jones has been bad. I think Richardson has been better. And I've always thought, Jim, that, in baseball, the tie goes to the runner. I joke with my golfing buddy, think of this as the Ryder Cup. If we finish tied, the team that had the trophy gets to keep it. Kind of the same thing with Richardson. If Daniel Jones is better, he will be the starting quarterback on September the 7th. Everybody acknowledges, hey, you have to show progress this year. My progress, I think, be a playoff team. I think that's the line of demarcation. If not, you're kind of at a moment where you can reset. A lot of free agent contracts expire this year. This team was kind of built for a 2 or 3 year window while Anthony Richardson was on his rookie deal. Well, this is year 3, and his contract doesn't really escalate until year 5 and then beyond. You're at a reset point if it doesn't go well. And so as of now, I think it's Richardson's job, because he has shown to be better through the first week and a half of training camp. But where it starts to matter will also be Thursday, and will also be next Saturday, and will also be in these workouts against the Packers and the Ravens, because they'll practice against each team they play against in preseason. They'll practice 2 days out from all 3 of those games. So not determined yet, but right now I would lean towards Anthony Richardson.
Sounds good. Did you get a chance to watch that Reds-Braves game? Well, it was
bits and pieces.
Split up. Well,
Yeah,
they had a lot of
obviously
bits and pieces for you, Greg, because there were some bits and pieces on Saturday and more on Sunday.
I was obviously busy Saturday night working, and so the fact that it got rained out allowed me to watch a little bit of it. But the visuals were cool. I like what they did from a graphic standpoint and from a helmet standpoint. I think it's a great idea. But, Jim, what struck me immediately is that should be at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. In terms of – and I keep going back and forth between what corner of the track I'd place it in. You can't use turn 3 because of the dirt track being there now. You could fit it at any of the other corners because, again, it's the difference in the size of a racetrack versus the size of a baseball stadium. I think I finally settled on in my head I'd put it in turn 1 because that's where most of the infrastructure is. That's where the double-decker grandstands are, much like they did at Bristol. It was dirt infield. It was turf everywhere else. And so you kind of lay it over what would be the last few turns of the road course there. You'd have the visual of being able to show the pagoda and the pylon in the backfield. You've got all those F1 garages that could serve as kind of a fan midway, all of the concessions that are both outside of the track but also inside of the track. And the other thing that also I think makes this a reality is the news from last week. Fox is now the 1/3 owner of the IndyCar Series, of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, of IMS Productions. And so you have a television partner that is involved in both. And so if the Speedway Series were to continue, and given our central location, probably wouldn't have the Reds playing in back-to-back years, unfortunately. But what's to say that the Cleveland Indians and Chicago Cubs, or the Cleveland Indians and the Chicago White Sox, or the Detroit Tigers and the St. Louis Cardinals don't play a game at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway at some point in time? So as a Reds fan, it was cool to see my team on national TV. It doesn't happen that often. But to me, what struck me immediately is we could do that here in Indianapolis. I think we could do it better than they did at Bristol.
Reds Cardinals would be a great matchup there as far as fan bases. Chicago White Sox, and who's the top other American League team that would
Detroit or Cleveland would be the two that come to mind immediately. Right now, the Tigers are the hot team. But again, you're doing this more from hey, you want to pull, fans from that market. You want to pull fans from the entirety of the Midwest. I would think that the Cubs might be the top attraction you could pull, and then again, whether it's the Cleveland Indians or Detroit Tigers, that would be the other Midwestern teams you want to play against.
Yeah, especially the Cubbies. While they're winning, baby, they are winning. Holy cow! Holy cow! Well, that just came out accidentally, but holy cow! What's up next for you, my brother?
Fly to Baltimore on Wednesday, do the game on Thursday. So we are on. I've got the full list of affiliates, and we'll try to pull up the email. I'm here talking to Jim in Indianapolis, in Louisville. Pretty much every Indianapolis television market is a Colts affiliate. You'll be able to watch the game coming up Thursday night at 7 o'clock. Saturday night, I've got the Indy 11 on the road against Detroit. You can catch that in Indianapolis on WRTV, television only for that one. But we are to that time of year where it is football and football. And we are now 18 days away from the start of the high school football season. So again, it's very similar to the National Football League. Today is the first official day of high school football practice. Okay. But everybody has summer workouts. Everybody has summer scrimmages. So this is just a different variation of what these kids have been doing for the last month or the last 2 months. But officially, high school football practice starts today in the state of Indiana.
And I was just thinking, you've got that game coming up. How difficult is it to prepare for a preseason game that has
90 guys?
Yes, and likely 89 of them are likely to play just because of that. That's the thing. When normally, if you have, even when you only have 50, they're not.
Well, I got a paragraph or two on every player on the team. The easier part for me is that it is such a Colts-centric broadcast. I don't have to do much on the Baltimore Ravens. I just need to have like a stat line or some sort of reference, but it is Colts. Usually our home game, the Packers game on the 16th, that should be seen on the NFL Network. The NFL tries to fit all of these preseason games around different pieces so they can show as many preseason games on NFL Network as possible. But even in that game, we are told, hey, don't change how you broadcast the game. This is a Colts broadcast. These are Colts affiliates. Colts. So I'm about halfway done, if not 2/3 done with my game prep. I'll spend some time today. I'll spend some time tomorrow. I'll kind of sequester myself in the hotel in Baltimore on Wednesday and finish all of that up. But I can give you chapter and verse on Colts wide receivers 9 through 13 because I did those guys on Saturday. If you'd like me to.
Lots of knowledge in that noggin, brother. That's a lot of knowledge to possess. Well, we appreciate you, and make sure you're looking forward to catching the where will the game be on?
So again, I know in Louisville it's WBKI. I forget whether it's CBS 4 or Fox 29 in the Indianapolis area. I do know we're on KHON in Honolulu. So they'd love to carry preseason games in Hawaii. So if you happen to be aloha this week, you can watch the Colts game. It would be Thursday afternoon at 2:00 Hawaiian time.
You should have worked out a deal to broadcast from Hawaii, from the affiliate, just to move it around to give them a little taste of it.
Well, we'll work on that for future years.
Greg Rakestraw, appreciate you as always, my friend. Enjoy your week. Enjoy Baltimore. Maybe get some oysters or something there. It's close enough to Maryland, right?
Crab cakes and football. That's what Maryland does.
Crab cakes and football. It's what sacks. Crab cakes and sacks is what they do, right? Greg Rakestraw from the ISB Sports Network. Make sure you give them a follow and are subscribing to everything they have. They've got tons of content. And we've got lots more coming up as well. Dustin Dopirak will join us. Zach Browning is out live at Indiana football practice. I believe we'll hear from him as well as the Hoosiers are in week 2 of the fall camp game preparation as they head toward their first game, which is less than a month away, people, as we're now in August. What is today? August the 4th. We're 4 days into August and officially 4 weeks from game one. So there you go. And that will be on the 30th against Kennesaw State. And I wonder if that game's going to be sold out. What will the Hoosier fans do? Will they show up, show out? We'll find out. But we'll take a break. Plenty more to talk about when we come back. Looking forward to that. Thanks for being with us. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after these messages.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today.
Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth Sour Mash Bourbons, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular Toasted Coconut Rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Jim Coyle with you on this Monday. Glad to have you along, no matter where or how you're listening on one of our great affiliates like 97.7 ESPN, The Ref, always the right call down in Evansville, and up in the region on the voice of the region, 12:30 a.m., 104.7 FM WJOB, and in Fort Wayne on Fort Wayne Sports Station 1380 The Fan. Keep it locked where you got it right there. It's the place to keep it all day. Yeah, I mentioned that we were talking about the Colts with Greg. They've got their first preseason game coming up at Baltimore, which is usually a tough place to play. I was looking at the On 3, Brett McMurphy is with On 3 now, his college football, his preseason AP top 25 ballot. He's got Georgia sitting at #1. Now, I do know that, notice this, in the top 4 slots, 4 different conferences. Georgia at the top, Penn State at #2, Texas #3, and Clemson #4 from the ACC. Texas, of course, from, well, that's not true. You got Texas and Georgia from the ACC or the SEC. Still getting used to these teams switching around. So not correct on that. But the Longhorns' first season in the SEC was not bad. Now they've got Arch Manning. You know what? I mean, I don't want to knock on Arch Manning, but I'm not going to anoint him until they've done something. It just seems like that has happened. Alabama is listed at #4 at Clemson. He says that, let's see, they're the one constant, and the ACC says the ACC can expand to 17 or 117 teams, and there remains one constant, Clemson. Well, there's no doubt about that. They'll have to see what their new quarterback, Cade Klubnik, can deliver. And it says how much impact new DC Tom Allen has on the defense. And then Alabama, #5, Kalen DeBoer's first season replacing the irreplaceable Nick Saban, started strong, but they stumbled down the stretch. I would imagine that they are a lot stronger this time around. They're listed at number 5 right there by McMurphy, so that's where he thinks they are. Ohio State at number 6, and then Notre Dame number 7, Oregon number 8, number 9 is Miami, 10 LSU, then followed by Michigan. Last season, Michigan only outgained 4 of its 13 opponents, but somehow still finished 8-5. Over their final 3.5 games, the Wolverines' defense allowed only 2 TDs to Indiana, Northwestern, Ohio State, and Alabama, with 6 regulars back. Sharon Moore is expecting more of the same from his defense. Offensively, freshman phenom quarterback Bryce Underwood and new OC Chip Lindsey are expected to solve the Wolverines' woes from a year ago on offense. Well, we'll see. A freshman quarterback, it's always Nebraska had a freshman quarterback last year, and that went very marginally. Texas A&M, Mike Elko, known for his defense, his Aggies, had the highest scoring offense in SEC play. We'll see what they do. Kansas State at number 13, SMU at 14, Florida at 15, number 16, Illinois. Says after last year's historic 10-3 team, the best in 25 years, Brett Bielema hasn't been shy about touting his team. If you don't stand up for yourself, he said, no one else will. And that's true. If you don't believe in yourself, who's going to? Illinois returns 16 starters, including the entire offensive line and veteran quarterback Luke Altmaier. If the Illini can win 10 games for a second consecutive season for the first time in school history, expect even more boasting from Bielema. Well, of course. They're followed by Utah at number 17. Oklahoma is at 18, which they're coming off of a wonky season, although they beat, I believe, was it Alabama they beat. But it's been 100 years since an Oklahoma coach survived 3 losing seasons. So Brett Venables, already with 2 6-7 seasons, knows what's at stake. He took over the defensive coordinator duties and hopes the addition of Washington State OC Ben Arbuckle and Wazoo quarterback transfer John Mateer can revive what was an injury-riddled, comatose Sooner offense in 2024. The SEC's Tennessee Volunteers are number 19. At 20, you have Arizona State. 21, you have Ole Miss. 22, you have the Big Ten's USC. Lincoln Riley held his thumb and forefinger slightly apart, so close, he said, summing up 2024 for USC. And there's a lot of truth to that. They had a lot of games. 5 losses by 1 score. 4 of those when USC blew fourth quarter leads. So Riley expects a different 2025. Quarterback Jaden Maiava, 3-1 as a starter last season, is back. DC DeAnton Lynn, who resurrected the Trojans defense last year, looks for even better results. Number 23 is Texas Tech, followed by number 24, Indiana. Last year was the best in Indiana history. Number 1 in 126 years, Kurt Signetti said. Will the Hoosiers be one-hit wonders, or can they return to the playoffs? We're not looking to sustain it, Signetti said. We're looking to improve it. It won't be easy. Cal transfer quarterback Fernando Mendoza and IU face a tougher Big Ten slate in Illinois, Iowa, Oregon, and Penn State than last season. Yeah, well, that's Indiana will end up being rated higher than that in the AP top 25. I have no doubt. Number 25 is Louisville. Jeff Brom knows firsthand what to expect. He's got USC transfer Miller Moss, who shredded his cards for 372 yards and 6 TDs in the 2023 Holiday Bowl. With Moss now the Louisville head quarterback, the Cards could reach another ACC title game if they improve in close games. 4 losses by 1 score last season. That's tough. And survive an AC scheduling featuring Miami, Clemson, and SMU. So that's going to be a tough row to hoe. What if he could rank 40 teams? His next 15 in alphabetical order would be Auburn, Baylor, Boise State, Georgia Tech, Kansas, Iowa, Iowa State, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, South Carolina, Washington and Wisconsin. So Wisconsin on Indiana's schedule. Let's see what I saw. Iowa on Indiana's schedule. I think that's about it. But that's Brett McMurphy from On Three's top 25. Not sure I agree with that. I think the Illini should be higher, probably. Well, maybe not. They're at 16, but Indiana definitely should be higher. I'm a little surprised that everybody keeps ranking Illinois higher than Indiana. I don't understand that, because the things that he didn't mention about Indiana is Indiana, whose top defense, who's extremely well-played defense, has 3 All-Americans back. So that matters. It means a lot. And we'll see. But I think that they're going to be ranked higher than that, period. That's just his vote. We'll see how he does. David says the guy that did those ratings must be an SEC guy. You know what? He's an East Coast guy. That's for dang sure. But I think that he fancies himself. There's a lot of stuff I have not agreed with Brett, but that's okay. We'll get him on the show here at some point and get his take on all of that. But so a lot going on. And hey, Indiana basketball leaving for Puerto Rico this week as well. But you've got great things for Indiana as Pat Coogan. There's a great article by Zach Browning bringing in a wealth of experience and leadership to Indiana's offensive front. And then you've got Bob Bostad, that offensive line coach, which I think this is a year he's really going to bring those guys together. And that's going to surprise people. Why? I don't know. I just don't know why people are going to be surprised if you look at Indiana's roster, what they were able to maintain, what they were able to pick up. But that's okay. It's always let them fly under the radar. I don't think they mind. That's kind of what Kurt Signetti likes. He likes having those reasons to jab at people and say, "Hey, picking me here again." He likes to tell people they're wrong, and so we'll find out. So we got that going for us. The tip times for the games in Puerto Rico were released by Indiana. The first game occurs on Wednesday at 7 p.m. down there as the Hoosiers take on the Universidad de Beaumont from Puerto Rico. Then on Saturday, August 9th at 7 p.m., the Hoosiers will take on Mega Superbet from Serbia, and they'll take on that same team again on Monday, August 11th. And it looks like these are in different places. The first game is in the Coliseum Guillermo Aguilo, and then the next game is in the Roberto Clemente Coliseum, and then it's back to the Guillermo Aguilo Coliseum. So I didn't know they had 2 places to play. Not sure if that's because of size or whatever, but we shall see. I did not know that they were going to move that game around. So we'll certainly find out, but we'll also find out more about Indiana and get a much better understanding of what they're going to look like. And my viewpoint is going to be looking at defense, really. How are they going to defend teams? And I would imagine that the mega team from Serbia is going to be tough to play defensively. And we'll find out what they're going to do down in the post, how well they're going to be able to guard down in the post. That, to me, will be a key as to what to expect for Indiana to go on. That last game's at 11 a.m. I didn't mention that on Monday. That's so people can fly out, which is fine. But yeah, that will be that's the schedule. And then they'll be doing other things in between, bonding, going out, probably fishing, deep sea fishing. Who knows what all they'll get to be doing, but doing a lot of bonding activities. I don't know if there's any, since I'm not going down there as a fan. I don't know if what the setup is, if they're going to have get-togethers with fans at all. They may do that. Very possible. I am not sure. I'm not looking at that at the moment, but some storylines to follow during the Puerto Rico trip. It is the month of August. Who's the starting five going to be? Well, predicting who that will be, we've kind of done that. It's, we expect Lamar Wilkerson, Tucker DeVries, and Reed Bailey will be three of those five starters. All three of those guys were some of the top players in the transfer portal in the offseason and come with the experience and skill set to be in the starting lineup. Tate Connerway is, I would be hard pressed not to imagine him at the point along with Connor Enright. They, if you have both of those guys out there, that's like having 2 point guards out there, because they are both magical with the ball. They're fast. They are just, they move the ball, they move themselves. That's what I expect to see. But how are we going to rotate? Because those are two of the top point guards. I don't think you want to have them both out of the game at the same time. But once that starting lineup is answered, the next thing, of course, will be how the rotations shape up to be during this trip. And all eyes will be on just who comes off the bench, when, and in what situation. One of the bigger things that Darren DeVries and Indiana basketball will be working on during their time over there is building on-floor chemistry. We talk about off-the-floor chemistry, but they have, the most important thing is playing together, knowing where how a guy moves, knowing how a guy passes. I'm telling you, I've said it before, whether it's Connor Enright or Tate Connerway, when they have the ball, you better be looking, because they are looking to pass the ball. They're looking to do their job and facilitate, and they do that very well. Jason Drake and Josh Harris or Alexis are being contenders, of course. Josiah Miles, you could easily expect there to be a new first player off the bench in all three games, as that wouldn't come as a shock. Then getting down deeper into the bench, where does freshman Trent Sisley come into play, and how much of a factor will he be? Nick Dorn is not expected to play this week as he still recovers from an injury, and Alexa Ristic not expected to play a huge role because he's just arrived on campus. So it'll be interesting. I mean, Trent Sisley will definitely get plenty of minutes, I think. I think it would depend on the situation, especially against that Serbian team, because, boy, you talked about getting thrown to the wolves. That's what that would be like. I mean, you're going from, in essence, high school to boom, playing some pro-type players. But maybe the biggest question mark for this Indiana basketball roster is how much production the front court will provide for this team. I think that it's going to be a very, very good. I think that the guard play is going to be one of their prominent positions. And watching and getting to watch them last week again, I was very impressed with Tate Connerway and Connor Enright. They facilitate the ball very well, but they also both shoot the ball very well. They keep it moving. They do not make it easy for defenses. So the guard play is going to be shocking as far as year over year. If you want to compare last year to this year, it's going to be shocking, the difference. I really mean that. Last year, you had guards who did not seem to know when to do what. It just was never. Think about those games that Indiana lost at Maryland at home, of course, at Purdue on the road. Those games that came down to very, very poor decision making at the end. Very poor decision making. Part of that comes from a lack of coaching. I don't think that team was coached worth a snot. And then they just weren't. They just weren't at the level of being able to make the right decisions in those kinds of situations. I don't think that Indiana has that problem this year. They are being coached hard and being coached well, and they have players in those positions that I don't see indecision from those guys being an issue. We'll find out. But it is the most worrisome part for Indiana, like as I talked about, is going to be Indiana's rim protection. It's definitely weaker this season, and it's going to be concerning on defense how they can handle that and stop that. That's I have no doubt that is going to be Indiana's Achilles heel this season, as the rest of the team. And I think they're going to play good defense, very good sticky defense, but still doesn't matter when man, you get a 7'2" guy who's athletic or whatever. That's going to be hard to decide. Don Fisher will return to the show. Let's see, the week of the first game. So there you go. I saw Don the other day and talked to him, and was talking to him about that very thing. But yeah, week of the first game, the Don returns. The Don. That's what he should be called. The Don. We'll have to maybe create a new intro for that. Who's going to be the alpha for this team? I really, in our open practice, there are a lot of opportunities for whom that is going to be, but I don't know. Is that going to be one of the point guards, which Tayton Conaway certainly acts that way, as does Connor Enright, which is great. You love for your point guards to be that way. Lamar Wilkerson, Tucker DeVries also would be considered in that. And you know what? If you've got the more, the merrier. And because Indiana just didn't really have that last year. Umar Ballo maybe fit into that category, probably. But as far as alpha and leading, big difference. I think you're going to see a huge difference in leadership on that team. So we will certainly find out. Sam Alexis, no question that the front court for Indiana is a question mark heading into the season. I don't. That's who's going to be that guy? Who is going to? Is it going to be Lamar Wilkerson? Is it going to be Sam Alexis? Josiah Miles likely would come off the bench this year for Indiana, but that doesn't limit his impact of importance, because I think the way this team is going to play with the speed they're going to play, that you're going to see guys off the bench, man. This is not going to be a 5-man rotation. I'm pretty confident of that. Tayton Conaway, like I've mentioned a lot, he's going to have a huge importance. He comes to Troy after averaging over 14 points and almost 4.5 rebounds and 5 assists per game last season. He's going to add, his assists are going to be very noticeable for this team. I have no doubt about that. Darren DeVries said on Wednesday he may be the one of the most creative guys with the ball in terms of the way he delivers passes. I'll back that up, because I mentioned this last week, but there was one, after seeing him make a lot of great passes, there was one instance where he was actually driving the rim and someone got a hand on the ball, but he was able to still try to pass it to someone. Crazy. Hey, I've got to take a quick break. We've got lots more coming up. Indiana Sports Beat Radio back with more right after this.
Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's COYLE, to receive a discounted fundraiser. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. I hope you had a good weekend. Chase Briscoe, NASCAR, where were they? I'm having a hard time remembering for some reason. I don't know why. I watched the race. But another runner-up finish. Could not quite, didn't have the tires to catch up to the winner, because the winner was just struggling on fuel, but was able to hold on. But another runner-up finish for Chase Briscoe. That's the second runner-up finish inside of a month. So congratulations to him as he continues to add points in the playoff race for NASCAR as he solidifies his spot there. But good run. I thought he had a shot to do that, but man, he just could not get up there and catch the leader to take over. But as was Brad Keselowski, he was in that situation as well. So good run over for Chase Briscoe in NASCAR. Then, of course, you had the Speedway Classic at the Bristol Motor Speedway with the Cincinnati Reds and the Atlanta Braves. Unfortunately, it was rained out Saturday. The Reds had a 1-0 lead when it got rained out. Cool Reds hats, though, with the checkered flag on the bill. And then, of course, the Braves had just like fire on their bill. But I like the Reds hats a lot better. I like to have one of those, man. But the Reds end up losing that game. And it always stinks when you start a game and it's got to be the next day. It's like a whole different game. But and then the fans, I think that originally they sold like 85,000 tickets for that. Bristol holds nearly 170,000 people. That's what they got for a football game, the most in the history of American football, when Virginia Tech played Tennessee there a few years back. So, and you heard Greg Rakestraw talking that they should have that at the Indy Speedway. That would be cool. And I wonder if that's something that they'll think about, because they like doing creative things there. I saw the Rolling Stones there. And we haven't talked about the fact that Fox now owns 1/3 of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Well, they tried to put a football game in there. That would be crazy. But I just, from a stands standpoint, I don't think that would work. You couldn't really, you'd have to bring in all the bleachers and all of that. So, yeah, I don't see that happening. Chatter on the chat board. Someone said this team's going to miss Trey Galloway and Anthony Leal, but in time they will succeed. No, I disagree with you. They're not going to miss those two. And I mean, they might miss Anthony from a bench supporting role kind of deal, but this team is built differently. And until you see it to understand, you will understand when you see it. This team is moving at warp speed. Everything they do, the offense moves at warp speed. This is not the old Indiana. You're not going to see this old weave that you saw under Mike Woodson, where they would just weave at the top of the key and then try to get the ball inside. I don't know what that was, but that's gone. If you can see that and then speed it up times 2, then that's going to look a lot more similar to that. But no, that is not how it's going to be.
So I disagree with you on there. They need guys that can move the ball, that can score the ball, and that's pretty much what they have right now. And it's going to be interesting to see. Running Bison. I'm not sure what that is, but Jason's mentioned the Running Bison. Is that a nickname to give the basketball team with the return of the Bison? I'm not sure. Also, the Sports Commission, we'll talk about this a little bit more later, that the College Sports Commission has loosened its prohibition on NIL payments. Yeah, that you remember that now with the rev share, NIL has to go through this commission to see whether these payments are above board, I guess, for lack of a better word. The College Sports Commission has loosened its blanket prohibition on athletes receiving payments from NIL collectives, according to a memo the new enforcement agency sent to athletic directors on Thursday. The collectives, an evolving industry built to funnel money to athletes at a particular school, will still face significantly more scrutiny when trying to sign deals with players that they had in past years. Thursday's memo from the CSC, which revises guidance it issued 3 weeks ago, ends the first notable scuffle under the industry's new enforcement structure without needing to return to the courtroom. However, it provides more of a punt than a definitive answer to essential questions for the future of how major college sports will function. Will wealthy teams and their boosters be able to game the system designed to create competitive balance? That's the reason they're doing that. They don't want this to return to the, above the table, but under the table type deals. So we'll have to see how that goes. But hey, we've got lots more coming up. Our friend Dustin Dopirak will be joining us, and Zach Browning is out at Indiana football practice. We'll hear from him as well. Appreciate you being with us on this Monday. Glad to have you along, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. I'm Jim Coyle, back with more after this.
If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Dustin Dopirak joins us now. Sir, how are you? How was your weekend?
Not bad, Jim. How about yours?
It was nice. The weather was incredible. Just enjoyed it and did some relaxing. And not going to lie, didn't do much of anything. I liked it.
Good.
Watched a lot of sports on TV. I watched some racing, watched the Reds and the Braves get rained out, and then watched the Reds lose. So had that going for us, which is nice. So got that, but
That got me scared.
It was what a
go ahead.
What a shame, because you think about the money it cost to
Mhm.
put that together and to have it rained out. They sold like 89,000 tickets for it, but ended up getting 50,000 back in the next day. But yeah, it's when you do something special like that, it sure stinks to get rained out, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's obviously, I mean, at least in baseball, you get the next day. Obviously there's other things you can do, but I think when I was covering Tennessee, they did that the year after I left. We was basically when I went back to Pittsburgh in that season. I think the 2016 season, Tennessee played, I think, Virginia Tech at Bristol, and so I did a lot of
169,000 people, I think they got for that game.
I think they had a just giant crowd for it. I mean, it always struck me as odd in terms of how they were going to be able to do it. It was probably easier to do it in baseball because they just built a stadium and they'll just get rid of it. But football was a little different. I mean, they put a field out there, but I think your press box was still where it usually is. In the just basically for the race course, and that seemed like, I mean, sight lines could not have been very easy to deal with or anything like that. But it's a cool spectacle. They've done that thing twice, so I think that's different. I thought it was interesting. They showed a picture of, you can have 2 Truist Parks in there. It's like, well, at IMS you could have like 10.
Well, it's funny you say that. Greg Rakestraw said they should be doing that at Indianapolis. And over in turn 1, he decided that would be a good place for it, to be able to put that in turn 1. I'm like, well, can you imagine that the Reds and the Cardinals, because that's a big overlap of fandom there. You could actually do a double header, White Sox and someone as well. That would be pretty cool. White Sox and the Cubs would really be a good one.
Could be, but there's no way Chicago would let you have that. No chance.
Yeah.
No way. There's no way that Chicago would be like, yeah, you can take that and play it at IMS. I'll be like, no, we're having that one.
Well, now that Fox owns 1/3 of IMS,
there's that.
There is that. But of course, does Fox have any baseball games?
Yeah, they have the World Series.
I can't remember. It's so spread out now. I can't remember who's got what.
Yeah, no, they still have half the playoffs in the World Series, and that game was on Fox last night, or on Saturday. Perfect. At least it was supposed to be. So
perfect. So how was your weekend?
All right. Yeah. Didn't do a whole lot. Get hitting the slow period. Just did some stuff around the house. That was about the extent of it.
Honey, do this. Honey, do that.
Pretty much hung out with some friends. That's about all.
Well, that's good that you get to take that time off and rejuvenate.
Sure.
And still, do you still find yourself just still trying to stay in touch with what's going on?
I can't get off of Twitter. I'm addicted. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
I should talk to counseling or something, but I can't. It's sort of like it's been an appendage for 15 years now, something like that. So it's like I can't not look and see what's going on, whether it's sports or something entirely different. And I try to follow everything. I'm if I'm not looking at Twitter, I've got MLB TV on or something like that. So even though I don't have to care about baseball, but I do. So
yeah.
I watched track. I watched track yesterday. That was cool.
Track?
Cool Hawker.
Really?
What's that? Yeah, no, it's USATF was this weekend. And Cathedral's Cool Hawker came back and won the 5K just like he did in Paris in this ridiculous fashion. So that was kind of fun. 200, Noah Lyles and Kenny Bigneric are fighting each other. So
yeah, the minute you don't pay attention to everything, that's when something happens.
True. Yeah. No, it's true. Then all of a sudden,
that has always been the case. Indiana is they leave for Puerto Rico on Tuesday, I believe. They'll be down there for 3 games, so that's interesting. We had an open practice. Now, when you were covering them, did you cover them during the Crean era?
Yeah.
Did you get to go to practice then?
No, not very often. I mean, you might. No. I'm trying to think if if it ever happened, it happened once. But I don't recall.
It was
one.
Probably early on then.
Yeah, like first day or something. I don't think. I mean, not much at all. I mean, I got to watch. I remember I got to watch some individual workouts, like off the record because I was doing the blue ribbon preview, stuff like that. Basically, he didn't do it very often. I mean, you also had to remember like practice was different then, in terms of when it was. When your technical first day was, I mean, you would have individual workouts, but like you couldn't do real practice. It was limited in how much on-court stuff you could do, how many people you could have on the court at the same time. It used to be like, very basically when the NCAA had to have a bunch of rules, it was like you could only have, I think, 3 to 4 guys on the court until like October something. I mean, you remember, I mean, like it was, what? Not October 15th. When was Midnight Madness?
Well, for basketball, yeah, that's about right. For college,
Yeah,
that's
for college basketball.
that's about right. Yeah. That was always the start, and there actually used to be Midnight Madness.
Yeah.
People, they wait till midnight to start that practice the next quote unquote day, which was kind of cool, to be honest with you. But I would not have wanted to have to be out there till 2 a.m. I got to be honest with you.
No, but it was fun. I mean, it was a different world then, for sure. But it was like that was a way of connecting with your campus. I think it was Lefty Drizel's idea, if I'm not mistaken. I think Lefty was the guy who came up with it. And I remember because, I mean, it was a thing at James Madison because I covered them. They didn't do it. They didn't have a Midnight Madness, when we had it, but it was at least a talking point. I think Lefty started at Maryland. But no, it was a deal. That was part of, that's one of those things that probably sounds like distant, like a rotary phone or something like that, of a bygone era. But yeah, I mean, that's Hoosier Hysteria used to be part of that, at least part of that concept. But it was just trying to get the most out of your day, and that's how you kind of connected. And like, obviously that stuff still exists, but I mean, the event was to take advantage of the earliest possible time that you could practice, and connect to the fans. And you could, and college students on campus at midnight, you can get them to do stuff. You can get them to show up, and have
get them to do anything
and that kind of thing. Like midnight is nothing for a college kid. And so, yeah, no,
it's the start of the evening. Are you kidding me?
Pretty much. You'd go out a little bit earlier than that.
Yeah, 11 o'clock was usually the official start time.
Right, exactly. Like you'd been doing stuff before then. 11 was when you really hit the town. But yeah, so that was a piece of this. So my point is, like, a lot of that stuff after Midnight Madness wasn't usually open because they had to get to work, and they weren't trying to put a lot of that stuff out in public, a lot of times. If you were in a bigger program. Now I covered James Madison at first, and every practice was open basically, at least to me. So that was kind of different stuff. But Indiana was, Tom Crean was never trying to just let you show up like and hang out. That they were trying to keep that stuff pretty closed off for a good reason. I mean, at the end of the day, they're not trying to get their plays or their this or their that or whatever, public. So we didn't see a whole lot. I think we might've seen a practice when they opened Cook Hall, something like that. But that was about the extent of it.
Victor Oladipo was down working out with the Indiana team. Have you heard anything about a workout with the Pacers, with him working?
I heard something, but I haven't confirmed it. So I'm not sure. That's possible. They definitely had Chad Buchanan, I think, acknowledged in an interview that they saw him in Vegas. He was doing a lot of workouts out there. So not sure. I do intend to check on that and see if there's more smoke to that one. And what their intent or plan is there. Because I mean, they are currently full as far as contracts are concerned. I'd be surprised if they brought him in on the G League route and said, figure it out. They could, they one of their contracts is non-guaranteed, so they could decide to let Tony Bradley, go and use that. But he'd have to be a fit, not just basketball wise, but as far as just being able to know that he's not going to be a priority.
Yeah, he's not going to be what he used to be.
Yeah, and so I mean, he well, I mean, you don't know what he's going to be. I mean, basically, if that's the whole point of working him out and seeing is okay, like how far along are you? Where are you at physically? Where are you at mentally? Those are a lot of big questions there in terms of just what he's gone through and everything, and obviously the fact that he's given it a shot, I think is great. Because I think he was pretty down through the whole thing. I mean, you're talking about multiple injuries, multiple major ones that really took a lot out of him, I think. And obviously he's the Pacers fan base does not view him like the IU fan base does.
They don't.
It did not go as well if you are more Pacers oriented than you are IU oriented.
It wasn't just it didn't go well. I don't think it didn't end well
either. Really didn't end well. Just obviously him, the idea that most Pacers fans got was he was trying to get himself out, after a couple of years, and he came in and said, "This is my city," and acted like he wanted to be the guy. And then, just after the injury, started spending a lot of time in Miami and seemed to very clearly be trying to work himself there, and eventually got himself there, and then got hurt and didn't make that. That opportunity didn't tend to what he wanted it to be. And, so he didn't get sort of that to work out for him in the same way. Then also, at least the way that fans are concerned, burned a lot of bridges. I think that will make it a tough sell to bring him back. For that reason, I think. But I think, I definitely, I hadn't seen him through that entire period, and I saw him come back, with Miami, and he really seemed, and this is after, he'd missed, I think, that entire NBA Finals run in, what was it, 2023, when Miami got beat by Denver. I think that was after I saw him, and he just didn't, tacking that injury on, it just seemed like so much was taken out of him. He just, I know he went and hung out on, like, after a game, he just sat on the court at Cambridge and was just like where he was when he had his quad tear, and just dealt with that basically, and just sort of sat there in the moment and in the place where his career and life changed. I think there's obviously going to be humility there, if he comes back. But is he going to be able to be like the fourth guard? Is he going to be okay with being behind Ben Shepherd and Ben Mathurin and Aaron Nesmith and Andrew Nembhard and all those guys? How is that going to hit him? How could he fit in a situation like that? Would he fit in a situation like that? I think it's hard to say. But he certainly wants to come back someplace, and I wish him all the luck as far as that's concerned, but would be tough on the Pacers end. I think would be tough on his end, I think, to come back and try to do this again here.
Yeah, I would think that we would always think that someone knows something, but that he would know that he's not what he used to be, but he can still be special. He's a special athlete, but it's not what it was. We see that all the time. You look at Larry Bird. Larry Bird wasn't Larry Bird at the end with his back with his back troubles and all of that, but it was still, you viewed him as Larry Bird. But I think that if you want to play bad enough as a professional, you learn to figure out where you are.
Right.
You just where are you in the pecking order? You can aspire and achieve to be better or to get higher, but you have to be realistic about where you are and what you're able to get done, or I think that just gets in the way.
Sure. Yeah. I think the tough part is, what guys can, another piece of it, and I don't know where he's at. Like, I have no idea how far he's come. But for some kinds of guys, it's the question of, can you play in the minors? Can you play in the G League? Can you get yourself to do that? When you've taken enough hits, do you have it in you to go to a spot like that, not get paid well, and like crawl back up that way, or are you just still willing to hoop wherever they'll let you play? Obviously you've seen a bunch of guys, in the league, a bunch of guys in baseball played in the Atlantic League, and played independent ball just to play. I've seen a bunch of guys, that were high draft picks, not a bunch of guys, but a few that you'll see in the G League, and you're like, wait, what happened to him? Derek Favors, Jahlil Okafor played for the Pacers this year. similar situations, not necessarily guys who became all-stars, but guys who were highly drafted and then got a major injury, maybe got another one, and then had to crawl their way back. Is Vic willing to do that? And I think the tough part is if you're Vic, you're very talented. You have other options. You have other ways that you can go. How important is it for you to try again? And so, no, it's going to be interesting to see just how it ends up for him. It seemed like it kind of came out of nowhere that he didn't seem to be very public about it. But then, until he was very public about it, he didn't really hear a lot until July, when it was just like, okay, I'm down in Vegas around Summer League and trying to get everybody to check me out. And, he was playing pickup, and I think, more or less everybody took a look at him. So we'll see how that ends up being.
I will say I am a little surprised that Indiana is a potential stopping point for him just because of how it ended, how it went. It did not end well. And usually you just with 30 other teams or 31 other teams, you might be looking elsewhere.
Sure. I mean, obviously it depends on how it's how it ended publicly, but there's also how it ended privately. I mean, I think we presume that we know based on how a fan base reacts, how a front office reacts, and that's not always the case. No,
they're a little bit more calm and professional.
And it's not just professional; it's business. I mean,
yes.
I think I really do believe that. I don't think Kevin Pritchard was lying when he says, for instance, with the Miles Turner situation. I think there's a huge part of the fan base that doesn't ever want to see Miles again and is going to boo him, with all, with every fiber in their being when he comes back. I really believe Kevin Pritchard when he says, I hope Miles Turner and I are always friends. I believe that. I'm sure that, and he said, it's probably raw right now. And I think it is probably raw on both sides in terms of how, everything went. Obviously, I don't know everything about it, but, I think both sides are pretty much aware that, okay, the money situation is why this didn't work, at the end of the day, and money is money. And that doesn't mean you don't like people or you don't like being around people or you don't like being on the same team. It's just at the end of the day, you make business decisions. That can be a big part to it. And so, whether, how much feelings get hurt or don't get hurt, is based on that. But I think people can put aside and said, okay, it is business. We had to make a decision of how much we could pay you. And you had to make a decision of whether or not you could make more someplace else. That's just how it goes. That's not personal. And so, I don't know if the Pacers would be willing to have Miles Turner back for, I don't know if the fan base would be willing to have him back 4 or 5 years from now. But, I don't think the front office would be upset about him coming back. I don't think they'd have a problem bringing him back, in terms of just having him around, so, I mean, Oladipo might be the same thing. I don't know, as far as how they're connected. If they're not, it didn't sound like it was particularly good, but that doesn't mean that's how it is. They're having a whole lot of conversations that don't play out in public. And, they might view somebody entirely differently, than, we think from the outside or we see from the outside. I mean, a lot of times we imagine conflicts that aren't there. And because, what we see play out seems like there should be ruffled feathers, or this guy said this and that clearly had this kind of meaning, I mean, sorry.
All right. Yeah, I understand. It's just not always the same. But people, a lot of times it's perception that is not real. That people think that are there. But like you mentioned, it comes down to business, and business is tantamount. But it also shows that how some players should be careful how they leave places, because hey, you may come back full circle.
Right. Sure. 100%. Yeah. No. I mean, you just have to be. Yeah, you have to be smart about how you're going to do everything and how you're going to say everything, and how you make your departures and all those sorts of things. So,
Dustin Dopirak from Indy Star is with us. We'll take a quick break. Back with more on Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle right after these messages.
The ISC Sports Network is your home for sports content across the Hoosier State. Find us live on TV and streaming or archived on our website and our app. The ISC is your one-stop shop for the content you want to see, including high school sports, college sports, and other great events throughout the year. Subscribe to our streaming service and get access to it all. ISC. Local lives here.
Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's COYLE, to receive a discounted fundraiser. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday, getting your week started. I hope you had a great weekend. It was very relaxing, and the weather was incredible. So, boy, I hope that sticks around. I know it's not going to forever, but take what you can get right now, right? College football coming up, man. Your Penn State Nittany Lions are looking to be one of the best in the Big Ten this season, and one of the best in the country as well. And we'll see how that fares out. But it's going to be interesting. Michigan is put up there. I know that they have a great defense, but they have a freshman quarterback. Mm-hmm. So a lot of questions there. The Big Ten is going to be interesting this year. You've got Illinois and Indiana, of course, Ohio State, Oregon. And Indiana plays Oregon, Penn State, and Illinois, as a matter of fact. So that's going to be fun to see. And they play a lot of those early on, but there'll be no questions about Indiana's schedule this year. That's for sure.
There already are. I mean, there will be, as far as once you get into the Big Ten piece of it, will be viewed much differently. And obviously there's still going to be the complaining and discussion about the whole Virginia situation, but obviously the Big Ten slate is a little bit heavier. Again, having, really 3 teams that everybody's looking at as potential playoff contenders between Illinois, Oregon, and Penn State. You have, certainly basically that will stand out more. Basically, if you can win 2 or 3 of those games, that puts you certainly in more of a so that puts you in playoff contention, regardless of who you're playing in the non-conference. So by the time you get to that point, no one's going to have any. If they manage to pull some of those off, and we're in a discussion about Indiana as a playoff team again, that will be, that will be viewed differently. I mean, I think people will still be upset about the idea of them taking Power 5 games out of their non-conference schedule, to some extent. But when we get to October and November, nobody's going to care anymore at that point. And, again, if they swing 2 out of 3 against Oregon, Illinois, and Penn State, then I think they'll be fine in that conversation. Now, if they only win 1 of those, I think it'll be a harder sell. Basically at that point, depending on what everybody else has. But yeah, so that having those 3 all on the board together, as they're at least constituted now, everybody's thinking about them now, are really good looking games, and certainly going to help the strength schedule.
Yeah, I'm so tired of hearing about it. It really, even at a neutral standpoint, I'm like, shut up. Who cares? I'm so sick and tired about hearing about last year. How about focus on this year? You don't have to worry about that. They've got this game, this game, this game, and this game that'll answer all those questions. So why are you still pounding on this drum that has nothing to do with what we're looking at right now? So yeah, there will be no questions in mind this year when you have road games at Penn State and at Oregon and at Iowa and against Illinois. So and then who knows what Wisconsin's going to be like. We don't know what Luke Fickell, his job's on the line. You know, he has got to get a good team going. That's a game that's late in the year after playing Penn State, no less. So it'll be interesting to see how all those games flare out. But I think Indiana, I think they go 5-1 in their first stretch in the first 6 games. I really do. I think that they beat Illinois. I think they win at Iowa. I'm not saying they can't win at Oregon, but worst, I think they go 5-1, which will set them up fine, because if you can go 5-1 in both what I call the first half, second half of the season, I think you're back in the college football playoffs personally.
Yeah, there's a good chance that obviously you don't know how it's going to shake out for everybody else. But yeah, I mean, 10-2 a lot of times gets you in. And if you get, you'll have at least one good looking win in there. If you go 10-2, they're going to have at least one that really stands out. Again, it'll really depend on what happens. I mean, I do think, as far as the conversation is concerned, with the scheduling, I mean, I personally viewed it different last year as, it's like you didn't have any reason to expect that Indiana was going to be there, and if you're Indiana, you had no reason to schedule as if you were going to be a playoff team. And so, like, you can be forgiven for taking Louisville off the schedule because, like you've got a first year head coach. I mean, your history suggests there's a better chance of you going 1-11 in the first year of a head coach than there is of going 11-1. I mean, like we saw what happened in Kevin Wilson's first year. Now, obviously the game is different now because you can, turn over a whole team and bring a whole team with you from your last spot, which is something that Kevin Wilson couldn't do. He couldn't bring like half of Oklahoma to Indiana back in 2011. That wasn't an option. This now in 2024, it is 2024, 2025. You can bring your whole team from James Madison and transfer everybody, and everybody's got extra, everybody had extra years. I mean, it'll be a little bit harder going forward even than it was last year. I mean, that last year was kind of a not, perfect storm, isn't it? But, you're talking about guys who still had COVID years and stuff like that, 5th and 6th year guys, which weren't always a thing. But, if you're Indiana, it makes sense to schedule that way. And now it's like, okay, well, if you intend to be a playoff team, shouldn't you be held to a higher standard? If that's that's the game you think you're playing in. Now they make a good case of saying, well, if the SEC isn't going to do that, why should we? It's like, what's the difference between us doing a 9-game conference schedule and not having another conference league game, another big league game versus them doing 8 conference games, 1 big league game, and then also playing 3 smaller conference teams. So, I mean, like, they've got a point there as far as that's concerned. But generally, when you're a big time team, when you're in Alabama or something like that, that one non-conference game that you schedule, it's a big deal, is a big deal. They usually go big, sometimes go with a neutral site game or something like that, but tend to swing big. And so when you're not doing that with one of your non-conference games, I mean, people are going to pick that apart. So it's going to be part of the discussion. And you can certainly see the committee changing things, can certainly see the committee being swayed as far as, some of those arguments concerned in ways they might not have last year, because I think I could not make the case that, Indiana ducked people. It's like, well, of course Indiana ducked people. Why wouldn't they? They were bringing in a new coach. Like, why would they think that they should act as if they were going to be a playoff team? Like, they didn't have any idea that was going to be the case until October, November. They couldn't schedule for that. But this year, once you've been there, there is a case to be made for, you knew you were this good. Like, what was the point of taking the game off the schedule? That you could have played and could have proven something else against a non-conference team. So I think that could sway some people, when we get into that, but obviously it's a long way off. You got to win the games first. You got to win enough games to put yourself in that conversation. You could easily not be in that conversation. You could easily not catch a break in some of these games. And, they have lost some guys. And so, you don't know. certainly based on what they did last year, based on what they have coming back, based on what they've added, you have to think they're a contender. And if they're a contender in the Big Ten, then they're a contender to get in.
Absolutely. And I was just thinking how fortunate it was for guys like Aiden Fisher and D'Angelo Pons and Mikael Kamara, who probably would not have gotten the All-American acknowledgement they got had they been at James Madison.
Sure.
Just because of being at James Madison. Now they would have been noticed and maybe they would have been lesser, but because of where they were playing, the league they were playing in, all became All-Americans, which is great for them because they're probably all going to be playing on Sunday.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's just, it pushes you that one step further. You get a sense of whether you can hang at this level. And it's obviously been we can, talk about what's good and what's bad about the portal. But, a big piece to it is a lot of people that when they're recruited, aren't necessarily the player they need to be a pro, go to some of these smaller schools, build themselves up. Obviously, they got to build themselves up physically and whatnot, just kind of create the tools that they need. And then, in their last couple of years of college, show that they're capable then of playing in the Big Ten, or the SEC or somewhere in that range. And then you see, okay, they are, pro caliber players. I mean, when it comes to those kinds of guys, I mean, like NFL teams are going to find you, if you can play, but it's nice to have the track record, I mean, that goes a long way to be able to put on film that you did it at this level. I mean, when guys dominate at 1AA or in the Sun Belt or something like that, I mean, and NFL teams are capable of finding them, but they're more confident in it once they, see it at the Big Ten, in the SEC, in the ACC, levels like that give you a better sense of, okay, this guy can really hang. And, especially if they're not necessarily, if they're just good, I mean, there are some guys that stand out as, physical freaks for whatever reason, and who knows why they ended up in this spot, but, they're at that level and they dominate. Well, if a guy's just a good, solid inside linebacker, you might not see it. It might not flash the same way unless you see it, at the highest level, and he's doing it against those kinds of guys. And so the transfer ups give these guys the opportunity, give these guys the shot to prove it. And you can grow a lot as a football player in a couple of years. You can be, you see a lot of separation. I mean, I think, obviously it's less of a science than basketball is, in the sense of, like looking at recruiting rankings. I mean, generally the guys that are top 5, top 10 in any class are going to end up being NFL players, more likely than not. But, when you get further into it, there might be guys that don't make it, and there might be guys that are a bit lower that do, where basketball, it tends to be a little closer adhere to, the rankings. If you see your top 100 10 years later in going into college basketball, it's like, how many of those guys in the NBA? And, it is going to be a lot closer because the physical development's different. It happens at a different level, and you need the physical development. Like that's a big piece to it. And there's a lot of guys that you don't see coming that do. And so that gives a guy like an Alden Fisher a chance, when he gets into a college weightlifting program, and, and it just plays for the right guy, the right people, the right team, the right staff, the right everything. You can see them make big leaps and become different level players. And then, again, when you have that opportunity to move up, that wasn't there in the past, you get to show more.
Yeah, how about the Fever? They've remained hot without Caitlin Clark. It's kind of amazing.
Sure.
And wow, is it great for them as brings them better, bring it together as a team. And without her, and then when she returns, of course, that makes them all the more stronger. But they've been kind of impressive without her.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a good team. I mean, you remember, they've spent a lot of time building this group, and it wasn't just like they had, like obviously they didn't have the same kind of interest, I guess. But, there were some good pieces. I mean, Kelsey Mitchell's been around for a long, long time. And, Kelsey's been, Kelsey carried that group for years and years. And she's a special scorer. She's a special player. Aaliyah Boston was #1 overall pick. We can, like obviously Caitlin's game is different and catches more eyes and all those kinds of things. But Aaliyah was dominant. Aaliyah was absolutely dominant at the college level, and she's been excellent. And I think they really lucked into one. I mean, I think it does tell you, I think people miss how good the WNBA is right now. And the story, like one of those, I think, stories that kind of tells that it's just how hard it is to get in that league and stay. I don't know if you remember how good Ari McDonald was at Arizona. I mean, when Indiana got to, I think, the Elite Eight that year, McDonald was the best player on that Arizona team that eliminated them, and she was awesome. I mean, she just cooked them. And Ari's having a hard time sticking in the league. And she got brought on as, the Fever brought her on as a hardship waiver. They got to take an extra player on the roster, when Caitlin was hurt at one point and somebody else was hurt. And she really kind of proved that she belonged. She's been starting, and she's been special, just how well she moves the ball and she can get to the rim and everything. She's a special player, and there's a lot of good women's basketball players out there that have a hard time sticking because there's so few spots. I don't know what it's up to now. They've added the Valkyries, but for a while you're talking about 144 players. When it was 12 teams, 12 players each team. They talk to themselves as the 144. That's a small, number. That's tough to break into, and so you saw a lot of talented players. Fever have had to cut a lot of talented players. In camp the last couple of years that, even the 1 year I covered camp before Chloe came in and took over, there was, I'm trying to remember the name of the woman from Ohio State. It was just a special scorer and they just couldn't keep her, a special shooter, and they just couldn't keep her. And McDonald was one of those that has had a hard time sticking, but was always a special talent. And so, she's managed to really help kind of keep this group afloat while they've been waiting to get Caitlin back. And they've had a really, they've won 5 straight. They look great. And so obviously they're going to be fine when Caitlin comes back and everything like that. But they've got enough pieces, enough talent now to keep this, to keep things going, even when she's not on the floor.
Yeah, and see, Russell says Brian says Sophie has found her range, knocking down threes now.
Yeah,
so,
Sophie's a nice player too, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the nice addition to that. So we got all kinds of stuff coming. High school football practice just started. Of course, college football practice underway. We're less than, this is the crazy thing. We're right at a month before Indiana's first football game. You've got 4 weeks before that takes place. But I'm ready for college football season. I'm sure you are as well, but your duties will have kicked in by then, though, as the NBA season. No. So you
get the first month. September not a lot happens. It's pretty quiet in September. Late September is when it picks up. We're looking at usually the last week of September is media day.
Well, enjoy it, brother, and continue to enjoy some downtime. We appreciate you as always. Make sure you're following Dustin Dopirak and being a subscriber to the Indy Star for his coverage. Keep local papers alive. Appreciate you, brother.
All right. Thanks, Jim.
You betcha. Thank you, Dustin Dopirak, joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Up next, Zach Browning coming to us. He's at Indiana football practice as their fall camp has commenced and continues. We're back with more from Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after these messages.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing, or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemooreSells@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. with a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music. You can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle on this Monday, getting your week started. Zach Browning from thehoosier.com joining us now live from Indiana football practice. He's out at Memorial Stadium, probably in the team room at the moment. But week 2 underway for the Hoosiers. And, man, first of all, they have to be loving this weather because that'll sure fire you up, not having to worry about going out and just dying from walking onto the field.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It was 70 degrees, and it looks like it's going to rain here in Bloomington, but the breeze was nice. It was about as good of weather as you could ask for fall camp practice today.
And so now we're in the second week. We're 4 weeks away from the first game. Exactly 4 weeks. You've got, and then of course, game week will be a lot different practice-wise, I'm sure. But they've got to get I don't want to say a lot instituted because they of course they've been working on that spring and then with the guys, but there are new guys that came in, so you still have to continue for guys to learn, and it's the repetitions. That's what makes things go well. And I know that is what they're working on now as they slowly implement their offenses. Because there's new players, the new linemen, you got a new quarterback, so some new pieces that have to be integrated into what the Coach Cignetti is trying to get done.
Yeah, and that's part of what gives some people an advantage over others. You talk about some of these guys enrolling, at least the freshmen enrolling in the spring. You look at those transfers, a lot of them were here in the spring. And Coach Cignetti has long said, if you show up in the spring, if you're here in the summer and you're here before fall camp, you kind of have a leg up. That's why you see guys like a LeBron Bond or like a Byron Baldwin, some of those kind of younger recruits, those guys already might have a leg up on some of the competition in their respective position groups. But it's been, at this point, Indiana, at least off the field in the film room, that kind of stuff is pretty much all caught up to speed. We talked to Pat Coogan at the end of last week, and he's one of those guys at the end of spring that was like, I still got some fundamental things to iron out, still some things here at Indiana that they do a little bit differently than what we did at Notre Dame, still got some things to kind of iron out there. But at this point, after going through the spring, the summer, you're now over a week into fall camp. Most of the guys from a technical standpoint and from a playbook and kind of how Indiana operates standpoint, they've already kind of not only bought in, but they understand and kind of follow along with the process now. So it's more so now not about kind of getting your feet wet, getting introduced to how a Kurt Cignetti practices, getting your feet wet to how Pat Kuntz operates his defensive line drills or anything like that. It's more so just kind of trying to figure out those marginal details you can get better on, fine-tune your skills, fine-tune the footwork, the hand technique, that kind of stuff as you get closer to the season.
Yeah, terminology, just how a quarterback might hand the ball slightly different. Just so many – receiving a ball. It's the quarterback. They've talked about how, different quarterbacks, it feels slightly different from their delivery, but all kinds of little bitty details. But the little details are what make the difference. That's what the difference in teams that succeed. As we saw last year, Indiana, they didn't make a lot of mistakes. And that was huge in the season. On offense or defense, they did a tremendous job at being locked in, not making mistakes, and that is something that you have to have. I think that those are the teams that are going to succeed more. You're not beating yourself, basically. If you're beating yourself, you're going to have a hard time beating whoever the hell you're playing. So that's a big part of it. But I think the way Cignetti and crew run everything that they do really leads to their team not making those silly mistakes.
Yeah, and that's something that Aiden Fisher actually spoke to us about at Big Ten Media Days in Las Vegas a couple weeks ago. He said he described Indiana as a team built on the margins, and he was reflecting back on that loss to Notre Dame in the CFP, and he said that was one of those games where we got beat on the margins, really one of the few times Indiana got beat on the margins last year. And he said that was what made it so frustrating, that loss to Notre Dame, is the fact that Indiana prides itself on winning the margins, doing the little things that add up over time, bit by bit, over the course of a 60-minute game. And that's something he said the team didn't really do very well against Notre Dame. And I think that's part of everybody coming back, the Kamara, Fisher, those guys that could have gone pro, Surratt too, could have gone pro probably, but decided to return. That's what this fall camp is about. It's kind of making sure those margins are hammered home, not only for them personally, but for the guys kind of that are newer, the freshmen, the transfers as well. I mean, throughout fall camp, this is the third fall practice that media have been able to watch so far, and you see it. It's one slight hesitation in a drill, and whatever that position coach is for that drill will stop everybody, announce out loud to the entire group, here's what was wrong, let's fix it, and then they'll run it back, and they will do it until they get it right. We've seen that a lot in a lot of different position groups, whether it's Pat Kuntz with the defensive line, Rod Ojong with the defensive backs, offensively too. There's a lot of them being sticklers, and I wrote about Aiden Fisher, about how he's kind of had to be a little bit of a bad cop this fall camp and kind of really hone in on those minute details, because that's what wins you games, especially late in the season, especially in the college football playoff. You have to be excellent and perfect pretty much with those minute and marginal details. And I think that's really been a focus for Indiana this fall.
Yeah, that reminds me. That sounds like something that we saw in basketball practice when both of us were there last week. The same thing. When something is not done correctly, Darren DeVries stopped it immediately and said, no, this is what we need to do. And especially on football, it's a choreographed dance. Everything is choreographed, but you've got 11 different guys that have to be choreographed into that deal, and they all have to make the right move at the right time. So it just gets in, especially with the new guys. Like I said, comes down to terminology. It comes down to timing. Timing is huge in everything. But what I talk about all the great things that Indiana has as far as defense. You've got the 3 All-Americans coming back at 3 different levels. But where are they? Where's the potential that you have to look at where they might have to improve? Is it left side of the line? Is it the line itself? This weak side, the secondary? I haven't pinned that down yet. What's been your observations?
I think it'll be interesting we'll take it position by position, like by levels of the defense. Defensive line, I think there's a lot of kind of question marks there. You've got Mikhail Kamara. He's obviously coming back. But then outside of that, there's a lot of question marks along the defensive line. And from what we've heard, from what the players and what the coaching staff has told us, guys like Hosea Wheeler, guys like Stephen Daly, Tyreek Tucker, they're expected to kind of fill that void coming in, replacing guys like CJ West and James Carpenter. I think Indiana's confident that they can get that kind of production from their kind of revamped defensive line. It's just we haven't obviously seen it on the football field yet on a Saturday. So defensive line might be the biggest question mark. At linebacker, Aiden Fisher, obviously All-American stud. Elijah Hardy, you can't talk to anybody in the Indiana program without them mentioning how much of a stud they think Elijah Hardy is and will continue to be and will be throughout the entirety of his Indiana career. You can read more about that over at thehoosier.com. I had a good story over there about kind of Aiden Fisher and Kurt Sinetti and kind of how you can't fully replace Jalen Walker, but if you can get close, Elijah Hardy is that guy. And then you have Isaiah Jones, PJ Nelson in that linebacker room as well, a freshman. So I think linebacker-wise, Indiana's confident, maybe a little thin depth-wise at the linebacker spot, but I think Indiana's confident there. And then when you look at the secondary is interesting. I made an observation today. Obviously, you have D'Angelo Pons and Jamari Sharp. Those two are trending to start. Pons obviously to start opposite of Pons at the boundary. But I made an observation in the secondary today when Indiana split up for teams 7-on-7, kind of walk-through type of stuff, 11-on-11 stuff. Defense and offense separate. But when the quote-unquote ones were called for the defense, Byron Baldwin went out there for the ones. He was that kind of third cornerback, so maybe in kind of a nickel package, you could see Byron Baldwin. But I think he's going to see a lot of playing time. I think Indiana loves Byron Baldwin as a true freshman coming in. We'll see how much playing time he gets. And then at safety will be fine. You've got Amari Farrell. He's going to start maybe at Rover, maybe At safety, you've got Devon Boykin. I think he was the other guy out there alongside Farrell, and the ones were called. Bryson Bonds has plenty of experience at IU. Lou Moore does as well at IU. So I think safety, they'll be fine. So overall, to wrap it up, biggest question mark, probably the defensive line. We just don't quite know what those guys are going to do at a power conference level, like Hosea Wheeler, Stephen Daly, Dominique Ratcliffe, linebacker, maybe some thin depth there. Maybe if somebody goes down with an injury, you might see some trouble there. Secondary, I think, will be much improved. Not that it was a weakness last year, but I think it'll be great this year for IU.
Jason mentions tight end, and actually Indiana has upgraded the tight end position. I don't know what, as far as depth, that they should be solid there with some of those guys back, but they brought in the kid from Tennessee / Notre Dame. And I think that they've actually made an improvement there, because when I was looking at Kurt Cignetti's history, but before last season, he used the tight end quite a bit, especially in scoring positions. I mentioned that his tight end the last year at JMU had 6 touchdowns as well, which was the combination of his top 2 running backs total. So, which was kind of amazing. But I think that he would like to use the tight end a little bit more in the passing game this season, if he's able to do that. And we'll find out if that's possible.
Yeah, tight end is a weird one for me, because Zach Horton, obviously great in 2023 at James Madison. The numbers took a step back in 2024 last year in Bloomington for Zach Horton. The numbers kind of took a step back, but Horton's on an NFL roster right now, and I think a large part of that is because of his ability to block. I think he provided Indiana a kind of unique kind of skill set last year, where if you needed him to go run a route and run something in a pattern and go get open and catch a pass, especially in the end zone, he could do that. He could go catch a football. But what set Horton apart from pretty much most other linebackers in the conference last year was his blocking ability. He was a 6th offensive lineman out there on the field when he was out there. And I think with Indiana this year, you have Riley Nowakowski and Holden Stays. Those are kind of the top 2 tight ends heading into camp and heading into the season probably. And I think together they probably combine for what Horton was able to bring last year, but I'm just not sure that they individually can bring what Horton did on a production stands base. I think that Nowakowski has the blocking ability of Horton. I'm not sure he has the pass catching ability of Horton. If you look at Stays, I think Stays has the pass catching ability of Horton, but maybe not the blocking ability of Horton. So you kind of have 2 players filling the role of one player last year. So we'll see how Indiana rotates them. They've spent a lot of time, Stays and Nowakowski, and the entire tight end group, working with Bob Bostad and the offensive linemen throughout fall camp from what we've been able to see. But I think it'll be interesting. I think Stays probably slightly better pass catcher than Horton, but obviously doesn't have the blocking that Horton did. Nowakowski may be a slightly better blocking tight end than Horton, but not as good of a pass catcher. So we'll see what Indiana gets out of their tight ends this year. It is one of those positions that I've circled as kind of interesting to watch heading into not only fall camp, but into the early weeks of the season as well.
And I mentioned that Cignetti tended to use his tight end more previously. I'm not sure that he had the weapons that he had last year. He had Elijah Surratt, but you add an Omar Cooper and EJ Williams and some guys that he didn't have before. So I think that, and Curtis Rourke had probably a much better season than anybody expected. So that also is like, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And it wasn't. And they kept rolling. And he did a tremendous job offensively. The running backs room did enough. Not quite what I think that they'll do this year, which I think is going to be one of the things that makes this offense a little more dangerous. The line is better, so they're going to have more options. They're going to have more options with running backs out of the backfield. I mean, they're just going to be a more multifaceted offense than they were last year, and I think that's part of what their benefit was. But that should be one of the things that raises the bar for Indiana this year, I think.
Yeah, the running backs, there's a lot of talent and a lot of Big Ten experience, and maybe not power conference experience in the case of Lee Beebe, but Roman Hemby obviously has been in the Big Ten at Maryland. Kalon Black now his 2nd year at IU, and he was kind of stuck behind Justice Ellison and Tyson Lawton in the backfield last year. But Black has been, and what Indiana has done so far, again in fall camp, Lee Beebe has been a non-participant so far. Today was the first time we've really seen him doing drill work. He was off to the side on the other practice field doing some one-on-one drill work with what it looked to be a trainer. But Black and Hemby, they've kind of rotated the carries and the snaps as the quote-unquote first team running back so far this fall camp. That was, again, the case today. Hemby probably a little bit better of a pass catcher than Black, so maybe he's more of a third down back for Indiana this season. And then Black maybe a little bit bigger than the other two running backs, maybe a bit more of a power back, goal line back. Beebe is your stereotypical. If he was the only back in the backfield, he'd be a easy plug-and-play workhorse 3-down back. So I'm curious to see how that goes and how they kind of rotate. You can't really tell in fall camp because they're all going to rotate with the ones. They're all going to get time doing an assortment of different things. I think what it might come down to, though, Jim, is who can be not only the best running back, but who can kind of pass block the best. I think that's where they'll separate themselves. Roman Hemby, he's a great running back. He's going to be able to run the football. He's going to catch passes out of the backfield. Same with Kalen Black, same with Lee Beebe. But whichever one of those backs can separate themselves and give Fernando Mendoza more time, or maybe check out of the backfield a little bit late and give him a kind of safety valve underneath or a late release underneath, or which back can just kind of chip that blitzing linebacker or pick up that blitz or do something like that. Again, we talked about it. This is a team built on the margin. So whichever running back can kind of do better on those margins, blocking, the footwork to get out of the backfield, running a little bit crisper of a route. I think that's the running back that will separate themselves as kind of that lead go-to guy as the season goes on. And I don't think they'll have an answer the first couple weeks of the season. I think it will be a feeling out process. We'll probably see a lot of rotation early in the year, but by the time you get to Illinois, that week 4, that's an early season test. They're probably going to want to have an answer, and I think we probably will have an answer heading into that conference opener.
And it's incredible to have that level of running backs because I think that's a step up because all three of these guys can do great things as far as running the ball, whatever you need them to do. But it's just like they bulked up the running backs room. Every position group seems to have been improved on the offense, right? Even the tight end position, the offensive line, the running backs. And I this is not a knock on Curtis Rourke, but I think that Fernando Mendoza is going to have a better season. He's already projected by a lot of NFL scouts because he's got a heck of an arm, man. He has really got an arm that can throw deep, and I think that's going to be a difference for Indiana. They're going to have over-the-top capability this year, man. What's up next for you, brother?
Just hanging out in Bloomington. Got a lot of fall camp stuff going on. Indiana basketball will be in Puerto Rico. I hope you enjoy the sunshine down there.
Hey, it's going to be better temperatures for you here, brother. Let me tell you.
Probably will be. Don't forget your sunscreen.
Oh, hey, I hear you. Hey, thank you so much, brother. Enjoy the coverage today. We appreciate you. Zach Browning from thehoosier.com. Make sure you're going there, getting your subscription so fuck to check it out because that is where the information is coming from on all Indiana football and basketball. Appreciate you, sir. That is going to wrap it up for us today. As always, great way to start the week. We appreciate each and every one of you. We're back tomorrow to do it again. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.